Here is my long-ago imagining of how I escaped from Oceania. Alex Saunders awoke with a start. A hurried glance at his watch confirmed what he already knew. It was 7:30. He dressed himself quickly and efficiently, almost being tempted to curse at having slept through his evening off. But he could hardly stay awake after coming home early from work. Being given the afternoon and evening off was a special reward. No one had said what it was for, and, of course, he hadn't asked. Now, Alec knew right away where he must go. It had been a long 6 months since his last time. The desire was still very strong, writhing his body despite the inevitable feeling of guilt that he knew would follow. It was dark outside, but not cold. A lucky thing, Alec reflected, as he knew that none of the Pearl women could afford to heat their rooms. Once in the Pearl section of Airstrip 1, Alec was very cautious, always on the lookout for patrols. He almost cringed, remembering the time, a few years back, he'd been stopped, but thankfully was on party business. Still, he was well aware that many of his colleagues were not nearly as fortunate. Alec strode into a side street where he could hear the loud mumble of voices occasionally overridden by an exclamation or song. Upon reaching the source of this revelry, he discovers, has been his hope, a small but well-filled bar. Glancing up and down the street and finding, to his relief, no sign of a patrol. As usual, the noise level suddenly diminished when Alec entered. One by one, however, the patrons soon ignored this outer-party, overawed member, then went back to their own amusements. Alec already realized that, after enduring this momentary embarrassment, he'd be left alone for the remainder of the night. Accordingly, he ordered a watered-down beer, then found a table near the door, just in case he might need to leave sooner than later. The pub, a term that had floated back from his boyhood memories, was quite old and dilapidated. Stained, cracked wooden tables were scattered about the broken tile floor like dice that would never win. Each one was different from their mates. Some bigger, others seemingly older. Still, more were verging on decay, not dissimilar to some of the patrons. As usual, men were in predominance. Alec could tell they were all laborers, as they all, with the exception of the proprietor, had calloused hands and sweated profusely after a long day's work. Enjoying their beer was one of the few moments of relief and repose. Alec was careful never to engage with any of them, for if it came to a disagreement and then fisticuffs, he was sure to come out on the short end of it. Of course, there were few women too, mostly tired, worn-out, ugly-looking specimens, yet probably none of them over 30. They worked just as hard as the men, their bodies proof positive. Alec turned his attention to these lowly creatures while trying to select one for himself and his need. Then a startling thing happened. An old man summarily plopped down at the outer party member's solitary table. Startled at first, Alec kept his composure, assuming that the grizzled man was merely drunk and had stopped by as a matter of gravitational necessity rather than his choice. His head lay near comatose on the table, arms folded on top of a rapidly thinning hairline. His host fought back the sudden urge to vomit, triggered by the extremely odoriferous state of his unexpected guest's body, from which, incredibly, given his demeanor, began to speak. "Alec, I can help you escape. Take this locket. Share it only once. Keep it from the others. Expose it only as a last resort." As the old man seemed to regain his composure and stumble away from the brief intrusion into Alec's search for momentary carnal relief, something metallic and sweat-covered was thrust into his hand. Totally at a loss as to how to judge this sudden, unwanted visitor's actions, Alec had no idea how to react. The apparently drunkard's brief speech left him stymied. Was it all addled meanderings, or was there an important message in the words and proffered talisman? The whole incident happened so quickly that he could barely remember what his visitor looked like. Still, after a time, human instinct reared its demanding head. Alec made his choice of short-term companion, then securely placed his newfound locket in the pocket of his standard overalls. The chosen woman was miles away from beautiful, but gamely fulfilled his purpose. It was at 1 o'clock the next morning that Alec began heading back to his servile apartment, still a luxury dwelling compared to the Pearl dwellings. However, he never arrived, halfway home being arrested by the thought police. Pain! That was the only thing Alec could remember. He was awake and breathing, but just barely. His stomach rumbled from hunger. The beatings were mercifully a blur, the needles a distant memory, only surpassed by what had to have been numerous electric shocks. In short, hours and hours of torture. The W5 details of his current predicament eluded him, with the possible exception of the what? A voice shattered the silence. So, Alec, you're with us again. Good. Now don't start wondering why. You know that never does any good. Oh, forgive me, I forgot you can't remember any of our previous encounters. I'm O'Brien. You're Saunders. I love Big Brother. You will love Big Brother. It's as simple as that. Alec tried to reply, but nothing came out. Oh, so sorry for the inconvenience, said O'Brien. But you were a bit too talkative last time. Suddenly, Alec's brain awoke, remembering something buried deep inside. With his fingers, he shaped 101. O'Brien's face reddened. Can't you forget that room, you... Clearly losing his temper, the inner party member cut himself short. You must forget room 101, O'Brien continued. It's as silly a place as that locket you tried to hide from us. Don't you realize that it was that very locket which led us to you? But do forgive me, you can't remember. O'Brien's face readily morphed into an official but somehow supportive look. I have been instructed to inform you that your request to leave Oceania has been granted, O'Brien blurted out. Furthermore, you will be placed under intensive care until you are once again well enough to look after yourself. Then, an intercontinental helicopter will be put at your disposal. O'Brien finished that last statement exceptionally quickly for him, then bolted from the interrogation cell. For a split second, it seemed to Alec that his tormentor had been on the verge of tears. Yet the promise of a lingering sleep, safe and sound, removed every thought from his slowly rejuvenating mind. From time to time, a segment of his torture would flash back, but never enough, thankfully, to reconstruct an accurate picture of what had transpired. One day, much to his surprise, Alec awoke to discover his straps had been removed. He was able to get up and walk around for the first time in as long as he could recall. Difficult at first, yet in a few moments able to stand on his own without fear of collapsing. O'Brien came in. Come with me, he ordered. During the past few days, or was it weeks, Alec could not help but notice the murky animosity of his capture. Today, O'Brien's eyes showed nothing but contempt. They left the cell via a sliding door that had never been previously used. So far as Alec could remember, the door opened into an unusually large elevator. Without any direction from O'Brien, they began moving, yet it was impossible to tell if they were ascending or descending. 10 seconds later, the door reopened on a rooftop. Surmising this location to be on the Ministry of Love, Alec was astonished to see an intercontinental helicopter, for whom, for what destination, unknown. Get in, barked O'Brien, giving Alec a forceful push. You will be given an escort to the border. Don't even think of turning back, or you will be shot down. But I've never flown, stammered the sudden pilot. Don't worry. We've altered your mind and embedded the requisite skills, came O'Brien's icy reply. Well, what are you waiting for? He rejoined. I was just one... Shut up, you fool! No one ever wonders in Oceania and lives another day. But I did, thought Alec as he moved into the cockpit, instantly connecting with the controls as if he'd been flying for years. The engine engaged. The blades started turning, slowly at first, then faster and faster. Lift-off! The helicopter soon moved towards the channel. Alec looked down at what he vehemently hoped would be his last moment on Airstrip 1. An immense portrait of Big Brother stared silently up at the novice pilot, causing Alec to involuntarily shudder. Then he laughed like never before, doing what his friend Winston Smith had not been able to accomplish. Now he understood why he had to be released. Room 101 could not produce his greatest fear, face to face with Big Brother.